training gap for a lot of these employees where they had great knowledge of what they were supposed to do on a day-to-day basis within the department, whether you were a correctional officer or working in an office, but they didn't have a larger context for why TDOC exists, what are some of the policies influencing TDOC, what are some of the best practices in public service management. So they wanted to fill that gap by providing a professional development opportunity for these employees. They also wanted something that was flexible. The TDOC jobs are very busy. People work different types of shifts. They don't have access to computers 24/7 in their employment like you or I might have. So they wanted flexibility to build that knowledge base. And one of the key things is if you're a state employee in Tennessee, whether you're at TSU or you are at a state agency, you have a tuition fee waiver. So you can take one free course per semester up to 4 times a year at any of our state institutions. So we could offer this at no cost to the employees as long as they submitted their fee waiver, and I then submitted it to the TSU bursar's office. So it was kind of a built-in program for the employees at TDOC. So why would they choose TSU? We have a lot of great institutions of higher education here in Tennessee, UTK, MTSU, Memphis. But one of the big things, not only did they have that existing partnership with our public administration program, but we are located in Nashville. I can walk 5 minutes from my office where I'm at and be at the state capitol. The TDOC main administrative office is even closer than that. So there was access to the leadership, both at TSU and at TDOC, where we could work out the details of this program. Plus, we are a central location to which employees could come for any in-person training. Also, we're the only undergraduate state institution that offers a degree in urban studies, which combines what they were looking for, which is not only best practices in public management, but also kind of that public policy context. So we were combining those two kind of main threads of what urban studies is to provide a tailored curriculum for what they were hoping their employees would get out of the program. As I said, we had an existing partnership and we made direct outreach to TDOC once we had heard through the grapevine they wanted to start something in an undergraduate level. So we said, hey, you're already partnering with our MPA, come partner with our undergraduate program as well. So some of the challenges and barriers we had to get over to even start this program, remember this is 2016, is the cost. So yes, the employees would not have to pay tuition, but it doesn't mean we don't incur costs here on our end for a lecturer, for training materials and things like that. So we had to negotiate that with the state. We also had to decide what 6 courses are we going to offer in our curriculum. We have a lot of courses we could offer. What are the 6 courses that you feel as TDOC employees would best benefit you? And so we went through course descriptions, course student learning outcomes, looked at what combination of 6 courses would work best. Where were we going to offer this? As you can see, we're a very long state. So if you're in Memphis, getting to Bristol is not easy. So how was it going to be dealt with location-wise? What would the recruitment process look like? I got to turn off this. What would the recruitment process look like in terms of how would TDOC select people to be involved in the program? And then how would we help them get admitted to TSU? And then how would faculty on our end buy in? Because this is a new program, this isn't our core group of students. We only are a program of 3 full-time faculty, and I'm department chair, so I'm really kind of half-time on the faculty side. So we had 2.5 employees essentially as faculty in our small program. So how are we going to do that? So one of the things that makes this experience so interesting, and it's been 8 years of partnership now, is that we as a host institution bring the academic expertise and resources to the program. And then Tennessee Department of Correction, and then later, as of 2019, the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security helped us decide this is the type of program they want to see and what it is that they want to see in this type of program. So there was a lot of negotiation back and forth in terms of, look, we have a course in urban administration. Are the student learning outcomes appropriate for what you want your employees to learn? is there a SLO or something that's missing that we could add for this type of programming? So there was a lot of innovation in that way, is that we were helping kind of doing a continuous cycle of improvement from cohort 1 to cohort 4 in the curriculum on the front end and the back end of each cohort. So as I mentioned, TSU Urban Studies was the program host based on our leadership in public management. And so what we did is we designed this 6-course micro-credentialing program focused on management skills infused with social policy. So what essentially happened is that we were able to negotiate an instructor fee, which was essentially the fee for an adjunct instructor here at TSU, plus an administrative cost on top of that. Plus, if the course was offered in a location that was not Nashville, any travel costs for the instructor, whether it's hotels, per diem, etc. So we negotiated that. We also selected the 6 courses, and we determined that we would initially offer each course. So if we have Intro to Urban Studies, each semester we would offer 1 in East Tennessee, 1 in Middle Tennessee, and 1 week in West Tennessee. So the first locations were Knoxville, Nashville, and Jackson. And then we changed to Cookeville at some point for East Tennessee. But those were the locations we selected. The courses would be 1 week accelerated courses from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, for 1 week in those locations. And employees would be able to come and sit in person with the instructor all week and do kind of project-based learning on the course topic. We also had to decide what the invoicing process would be, which meant we would invoice actually after the course was offered, and TDOC would pay TSU. That was a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning because we didn't have any money up front. Luckily, the grants office at TSU worked with us, but we had to figure out what the most appropriate process for invoicing would be so that we could get the program up and running. So the focus of the courses really came down to 4 key elements. One was project management and public service management. They wanted to focus employees on conflict negotiation. Why are resources allocated a certain way across the public sector? What are the best team building and decision-making skills? And students would actually get into groups and work through scenarios, case studies, and do 1 large project per course. They wanted to also teach students about their own leadership positives. So, we would do some of these leadership tests, and students would identify what their skills were, what they needed to improve on, what were the most effective forms of leadership given their positions. And then we would also do public policy so that they would understand the economic and policy decision-making that had gone into why maybe TDOC in Tennessee looks the way it does, some of the stakeholders, some of the sociological factors that were influencing the way prisons were run in the state, and TDOC itself, our political context. And then we would add specialized curriculum. So for example, in a course that I might teach on urban politics for my traditional urban studies students, I probably would give them a broader scope of topics through which to focus their policy portfolio on. For these students, we are really trying to get them to understand the context in which they work. So they would still have a choice, but it would be a little bit more limited to certain topics so that they could infuse some of that knowledge into their day-to-day jobs. Now, that didn't mean in other courses they got more of a choice so they would get a broader context of learning. But we would infuse some of these kind of criminal justice aspects into a lot of the assignments. So the target audience, as I mentioned, were correctional officers and administrative personnel initially from TDOC, and then we added Homeland Security agents in 2019. So I've had state troopers in my classes. I've had people that work at the DMV. So once Homeland Security got on, it was a little bit different class discussion, which was interesting, but it did add some flair to the program. So the goals of the program are to upskill state employees, enhance management capacity. So we've had several people who've gone through this program to get minor promotions at the state agency because they've gotten some training on management, and the state keeps a very detailed training record on all of their employees. And to improve public service delivery in our prison system and later in our Homeland Security and safety ecosystem. So the curriculum and program components were really comprised of the coursework. So mimicking the coursework we do in any of our online or on-ground traditional courses. We did a lot of hands-on learning. So as I mentioned, we did project-based learning. Students would do interactive workshops. We would bring in guest lectures. So kind of working through scenarios. They would earn a micro-credential. So the key thing to remember is in our state, we cannot offer certificates at the undergraduate level without going through a very arduous process. So what we did is the state agreed, we will give them a certificate upon completion. TSU doesn't have to do anything, but then TSU will provide academic pathways and advising for them to then continue on and get their Bachelor's of Science degree. So throughout all this, while students are in these 6 one-week intensive courses, I would go, if I wasn't teaching the course, I would go down to Jackson, meet with each student, create an academic pathway. We had students coming in with no college experience, and we had students who had 160 credits from 5 different colleges. So each student had their own unique pathway to earning their bachelor's degree post-completion of the Professional Management Academy. So one of the key parts of that advising was to go through and see what can I get them for work experience or prior learning assessment. And that's how I came to know Kale, actually, is through our prior learning assessment office here at TSU. So I would look at their state trainings transcripts, which, like I said, are very detailed. I mean, you can go back and see that they went through gun training in 1998, and it gives them how many hours they completed in the training. So I would try to match up different trainings they've had with different courses that I had and had control of in my curriculum. So that's basically nonprofit management, urban studies, and social work. So for example, if a student had a lot of training in one specific kind of management area, I would be able to go in and say, okay, I think that qualifies for our internship credits, something like that. I would also look at any other work-based training they had, if they had previously worked somewhere else, or if they had things on their resume that they had done off employment, but was still related to the urban studies program. I would look at that. I would review with my co-faculty the recommendations I was seeking to make to our adult learning office, who has not final approval, academic affairs has final approval, but really is the gateway to earning PLA credits on campus. Then identifying which courses, and then going through the application process for PLA with them, which is a lot of forms. But I have it worked out. I'm still doing it with PMA students who finished a few years ago, because a lot of them go part-time, so it takes them a while to finish, but I'm still getting PLA credits for them as they go through their urban studies program. So as I said, we're offering 1 week per semester. So we would do spring, fall, summer 1, and summer 2. So in the summer, they would get 2 courses, so they could use all 4 of their tuition waivers that are state of Tennessee benefit in an accelerated course. Hands-on project-based learning, they're in cohorts. Cohorts for this group is very important. They get used to the people they're in the course with. They feel comfortable. I mean, you can see from the first Intro to Urban Studies course to the last course they take, the difference in discussion, and it's kind of more jovial, because then it becomes a level of comfort for the students to participate in activities together. We do faculty advising during each course, and we offered it in all 3 regions of Tennessee. We also mixed up who was teaching. Like sometimes it would be me or one of my faculty colleagues, and sometimes I was able to bring in a real world practitioner. We had someone from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations teach a course. We've had someone from Civic Engagement Agency teach our community awareness and community service course. So we were trying to give them not only hearing from academics, but also hearing from people who are in the field doing the work that influences public service management. So these are the 6 courses we selected in partnership with TDOC. So from our introductory course to the discipline all the way up to American Governance and Institutions, which is really a higher level American government course. And we went through each of these. Nonprofit management, we infused a lot of leadership stuff into that course so that the faculty, so the students would understand the different elements of leadership and the different types of leadership. So the program flow is we recruit. TDOC handles recruitment. They go out to the prisons and they recruit. They send emails over their listservs. They apply to the talent development office at TDOC. Once they're selected for PMA, they then apply to TSU. They have an orientation meeting once they're accepted to TSU with me and any other stakeholders in our department and college. Then they take the 6 courses in this sequence and they submit their state training transcripts to me during the completion of those 6 courses so I can create the academic pathway plan. And then at the end, a couple months after they finish the 6 courses, we do have a ceremony where they get a certificate from the state and we say thank you, we invite the instructors, and it's a really nice ceremony. And then I work with them to continue on to earn their Bachelor of Science in Urban Studies from TSU. So to participate, you have to have a 2.25 high school GPA or 2.0 transfer credit GPA because that's the TSU standard. You have to apply through TDOC or Homeland Security if that's your state agency. You have to get accepted to TSU and you have to pass each course to continue. So if you sign up for Intro to Urban Studies and you don't pass, you're not going to move on to the next course. You're done with the cohort. That doesn't mean you can't continue on at TSU. You're just done with the cohort. Okay. So lessons learned from cohort 1, which went from fall of 2016 to spring of 2018, is that transfer students were, I hate to say this, easier to work with because they came in with a lot more general education. So it's easy for me to work with a student who did a year and a half at Nashville State Community College or Motlow State Community College and say, okay, you've completed 30 of your 42 gen ed credits. Now, these are the courses you need: 2 natural sciences, a lit course, and your speech course. Then telling a student who came in with a high school diploma only, yes, you've now finished 6 of your core courses in a major, but you're going to have to go back and take 42 hours of general education. So I've had students do that are still in the urban studies program working through it, but it became a little overwhelming for the students, was my assessment. Initially working with our admissions office was very difficult. I was having to kind of hand walk transcripts unopened, of course, over there that were addressed to me. I was eligible to receive transcripts, and it just became messy. So I'll talk about what we did to improve that process. Materials. We were initially creating these large, like 3-ring binders, almost like an old school tenure application binder with like all the PowerPoints, all the readings, all the assignment descriptions, all the resources, anything. And so it was very labor intensive for our administrative assistants, GAs, and myself, and their copying and doing all this. Faculty recruitment became interesting. It was very easy to get people to teach in Nashville. And then I did make some contacts at UTK, so I was able to get people for Knoxville. Getting people to go to Jackson was a lot more difficult. So we just had to rethink how we were doing faculty recruitment. And then we realized we needed to be very intentional about our internal partners. We needed to have meetings with the adult education office, talk about this is what we're doing. You're going to see an increase in PLA applications from us. And we did that. So we just kind of realized through that first cohort, all the things we were missing and all the gaps we had in making sure the students were getting what they needed. So the changes we made is we actually started doing an orientation before this. Once the students were accepted to PMA but had not yet applied to TSU, the admissions office does an orientation with the students. So they understand the process, the time frame, when they need to get things in. We require now that students have at least 30 transfer credits to come into the program. That just makes it easier to get them the credits they need and to give them a viable academic pathway. And then we transferred all the materials into Brightspace, our LMS, our learning management system, so that students could have access more readily and didn't have to carry around these binders. And it was easy for us to get on there and then make changes as we needed to. And then we started having faculty recruitment events. So we'd send out to our advisory board in urban studies or the College of Public Service and say, hey, if you know anyone who has these credentials to meet SAC standards, and would be interested in teaching a 1-week accelerated in these 6 areas. Can you send them to me? And we were able to recruit some people that way, and it was really effective. So some of the larger obstacles we faced is time off for state employees. Some warden, like if your boss was a warden, some were very like, okay, of course, you're supposed to be in the class. Go ahead, no big deal. And some might hesitate and say yes, but then call or email the employees the entire week they're there. And some were just very much like, no, that's got to be personal time you're taking off and all this stuff. So that was the responsibility of TDOC, but they then did change their policy that this was excused non-PTO absence for employees, and you have to let them off and not basically email them all week. So during COVID-19, of course, we were planning to have our 3 sessions that summer 2020. We had to transition everything online. So we started doing the 1-week accelerated online, which actually has worked out great, and we have not deviated from this because all 3 state regions, East, Middle, and West, are now in the same cohort in the same class, online, one-on-one with an instructor. And we've kept the same policy regarding time off, even though it's easier to get in touch with people when they're only online versus in a large room, one-on-one with an instructor. So we had to revamp our SAC-COC faculty credentialing process in line with TSU doing the same thing. So TSU's process for getting faculty approved to teach courses changed significantly when we went under our accreditation review in 2021. So the PMA program has had to follow suit. And unfortunately, that meant I think 2 of our instructors one had an MBA, so he no longer was qualified to teach in our program because he didn't have graduate hours in public administration, urban studies, public policy. And then one of the other things is the program length post PMA, how long it will take employees to finish their degree. And so that's something we're still working on. And we've talked about doing another accelerated cohort, but we're still kind of talking through that because we're trying to get students to the finish line. So as of now, we've had 4 cohorts who've completed, 84 students across the state have finished, 15 have already completed their BS in Urban Studies, with 2 more graduating this fall from PMA. And we've then had several students, I think 8, go into our MPA, our Masters of Professional Studies, or the Command College, the PMA equivalent at the graduate level. I just talked to a PMA alum who finished her urban studies degree, then transferred from TDOC to THEC, our higher education agency here in the state, and now is working in Arizona in urban planning. So it's really been like students have gotten promotions, they've finished their degree. Some of them have gone on and finished their degree at other institutions, which is fine. And now they're in graduate school, moving to other states, doing great things. So what are we looking at? We need to sign a new memorandum of agreement with TDOC. Our most current one has run out. And we were planning to start cohort 5 in fall 2024, but TSU itself has gone under some leadership changes. So we're holding off till fall 25 just to make sure. We actually have an interim president for a year, and we're getting a new president next July. So we're trying to make sure the institution is in a place where this is the type of program the new president has in his or her vision. We want to reach out to Department of Human Services and Department of Education as potential new state partners. And we obviously want to do a PMA stage 2 so that students feel like when they're done with the first 6 courses, they can continue in that accelerated format to finish their other core course requirements. So courses that we have on record, like urban politics, urban and metropolitan economy. Some of the other courses we require for our major, but in that accelerated format. Okay, thank you. And I'll take any questions right now.
I was curious, are there any conversations of adding in extra academic departments to broaden the possibilities of courses they could take?
I think that the most obvious one for TDOC at least would be criminal justice. And we do have a criminal justice professor who teaches in the program a lot. I think right now we're kind of undergoing a realignment institutionally. So I'm interested to see if we land where like criminal justice would now be in the College of Public Service, because I could see that happening, which
Mhm.
makes this kind of partnership easier. If we were to bring on like Department of Human Services, the other program in my department, social work, that's a no-brainer. So yes, absolutely. We've talked about that, but we try to involve, like I mentioned, we had business administration professor, we have criminal justice professor. We've had a professor who from public administration. So we do try to kind of give them a diverse perspective of faculty.
And then someone was asking if who again, I think they might have missed the beginning. Who started these conversations? Was it TSU that approached TDOC or who started it?
Initially TDOC had, I think, I don't know if they went to this was for the graduate level one. They had gone to some kind of national Department of Correction conference, but they had gone some large meeting where they had seen some of these ideas, and that made them approach the dean at the time and talk about, would this be something TSU could do, because we have a public administration program. So that's kind of where it kicked off. And then once they kind of heard, I think internally, some like, why do the people with bachelor's degrees get all the opportunities? I think that's when they said, okay, we need to offer something similar for our more frontline employees. And that's where, when the dean then approached and said, do you think we could do this? I said, absolutely. And he reached back out and said, look, we can do this if you guys are really, wanting to do this. So that's how it started.
And then I know someone was asking in another session, and I think it would be good to have a little bit of your personal insight coming from the higher ed world and knowing what it's like to be director of admissions and working with the registrar and accreditation. How were the like internal, not politics, but the red tape, or how was it to get everybody on board internally at TSU?
It's been a process. Like, I think a biggest hiccup the first, I would say, two cohorts was just something that's not unique to PMA program, but it's just processing those transcripts, which happens with all of our students. So
Everywhere.
this wasn't a unique program. That's kind of when I took it. At first I was like, yeah, just send it to the admissions office. And then it wasn't getting processed. And I said, send them directly to me. And I would hand walk them over there and say, this is for XYZ student. Please mark down that you've received his or her transcript. And that is something that probably I shouldn't have had to do, but I realized I needed to do to make sure my students were admitted on time. Another thing we faced a little bit of a barrier with admissions is if someone graduated in 1980 and had a 2.15, they didn't let them in. And so I would tell them, like, think about coming back in for cohort 2, go take English 1 at Nashville Community College. You'll then have a 2.25 or higher, and you can get into TSU. So took some of the innovative work. I think it was very well received by kind of the academic affairs area. And then the other thing that was impacted was our registrar, just getting them to, transcribe those transcripts so I could adequately provide an academic pathway for the students. That was a lot of legwork too, but it worked out in the end.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the crowd? And I just want to remind everyone, if you could do the survey that is in the CVent website, you can fill that out. It's just a quick couple of questions. And then this recording will be here for 90 days, but it also has Dr. Kara's Robinson's contact information. So if you need to contact her, or if you feel that you have questions that you would like to get answered, you can reach out to her directly.
Please do.
Awesome. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much. It was so
Thank
great. Keep
you.
up the
All
good
right.
work.
Thank you. Have a good one. Stay safe and
Bye.
tranquil. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.